All right, so this past weekend we had the racing at COTA. Listen, I'm gonna be flat out with you just to start. I was at COTA, I was yelling at the top of my lungs, I was having a great time. My voice is shot if you can't tell. So I just ask that you please bear with me. But this past weekend at COTA, we had a ton of stuff to talk about. But of course, as is with seemingly every NASCAR weekend, we have to talk about the controversy of the week. I will say, having these controversies every other or every single week has really watered it down for me. It just seems like another thing that we have. You know, I'm not saying that this was different in the good old days or anything, but it did seem like even 2-3 years ago, we weren't having something like this every week. So, I don't know. Sometimes it's warranted, though. But let's get into it. We had the race at COTA. We had rain racing. We had tons and tons and tons of different things to talk about. But I gotta say, this one definitely was different, if that's the best word to put for it. There was a different feel to this race, at least at the race. I don't know how it was on TV. I probably won't see the TV broadcast till Wednesday, if ever. But it was definitely a different feel being at the track for this race compared to any race really since the 2020 Daytona 500. It really was like that. But it brought up some questions, some major questions about both NASCAR at COTA and NASCAR in general, racing in the rain, at road courses, the future, a whole bunch of stuff. And I want to try and answer a few of those questions, or at least give my perspective on what NASCAR should be looking for moving forward. The first big question is, should NASCAR even race in the rain? Listen to what Kevin Harvick says here.
We don't have any business being out in the rain, period. So, all I can say is this is the worst decision that we've ever made in our sport that I've been a part of, and I've never felt more unsafe in my whole racing career, period.
Those are some pretty damning comments. I'm going to be flat out with you, though. Yes, NASCAR, when possible, should race in the rain. Should it race in the rain at Daytona and Talladega? No, of course not. Should it even race in the rain at Michigan or Kansas? I don't think so, personally. I think those are too big of tracks to race at, too dangerous, way too dangerous. But we should. We should race at road courses and short tracks if it is absolutely possible. And why? Well, first off, we have the ability to do this. It was different back in the day when there weren't rain tires that were brought each time we had a road course race. Obviously, back then, when it was just slicks, you couldn't race. But now, we have treaded tires. We have a lot of different adjustments that we can make to the cars that give them the ability to race in the rain. So the option of racing in the rain or not, in my opinion, shouldn't be explored because we have our answer. Yes, we can race in the rain. We've raced in the rain before. We should be racing in the rain when it's possible. And that's another big thing. We've done this in the past. Look at the Roval last year, for instance. We raced in the rain, NASCAR, I should say, raced in the rain with a hell of a lot worse conditions, I would say, compared to what we had this year. We raced in the rain earlier this weekend in the Truck Series race, and the racing was great, absolutely phenomenal. So there's precedent here for us to continue as a sport, as a culture, to race in the rain and push this issue more. It doesn't make sense to me how people loved the truck race earlier in the weekend because they raced in the rain, but they hated the Cup race because they raced in the rain. It's very hypocritical in my opinion, and I think that fans should really step back for a minute and ask why they're thinking that way, and I think a lot of it is bias. So long story short, yes, we should race in the rain. Now, another question that people asked was, should NASCAR be racing at COTA? Yes. Yes, we should. Now, why? Well, to start with, there was great racing. I don't care which series you watched this weekend, there was great racing in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series, and especially in the Cup race. There was great racing all around. I, being there, was thoroughly entertained. I think we should keep racing at COTA simply because of the great racing. But there's more reasons than just what we saw as the on-track product. Racing at COTA, especially in the rain, paves the way to a future where we can race more tracks in the rain. NASCAR can use what they learned in COTA this past weekend to help further make improvements to what it has for future events. Who knows? They could use what they learned here to make the racing at Road America better, for instance. And if stuff goes without a hitch, then you know they learned from their mistakes. That's a big one. Another reason is that COTA is in the Austin area, and it's an area and a market with great racing fans. There was a ton of strength when it came to the crowd for this race. Personally, I think it was around 50 to 60,000 people, which would make this the most attended NASCAR race probably since the 2020 Daytona 500. So you can't just abandon what looks to be a very strong base for the standards of modern NASCAR. There were a lot of younger fans. There were a lot more fans that really had great energy to them. The energy at this race, in the stands, in the concession areas, in all of the areas that fans were allowed, was palpable. It was great to be around people. Now, maybe part of that is being the first race that doesn't mandate masks be worn by the fans. I can see that being a reason, but it just seemed like there was a lot of excitement both at the track and in the surrounding area for NASCAR to be there. I don't think you should in any way go against having those fans. And the biggest reason is it's not always going to rain. Yeah, we had rain this past weekend. And in the stands, I'm not going to lie, while I had fun, it sucked being soaking wet all weekend. But it's not going to be like that every year. It's not. Everyone needs to just step back and look at this as an individual weekend rather than what it's going to be in this race for future years to come. Next year, it could be swelteringly hot in the 90s, around 100 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. That is a very realistic possibility. Or we could have another rain out, or who knows, we could just have a mix of both. You don't know. The future is fluid, so give it another shot, because one race and trying to ditch it from here is an absolutely horrible way both for NASCAR to run its business and fans to have an outlook on the sport like that. But that being said, there needs to be questions on how to improve moving forward. So, how does NASCAR improve moving forward? Firstly, there needs to be stronger procedures for racing in the rain. NASCAR, like I said, can race in the rain. The difference between what we saw today and other rain races is the fact that it seemed like NASCAR was kind of making stuff up as they went. I'm not saying they were, but I'm saying that it did seem very amateur at times. It was clear that the visibility was bad. It was clear that the on-track production was starting to get more sloppy. There were a lot of things that were clear to show that this plateau of excellent racing was going to cascade into a canyon of chaos. NASCAR needs to have strict lines that it can follow to what constitutes a good rain race in their eyes versus what constitutes a dangerous race in their eyes. And I think the lines were blurred when they definitely shouldn't have been this time. There were certain points where they needed to put their foot down and didn't, and it did lead to a nasty wreck with Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Custer. It is a common theme for NASCAR to basically wait until the worst possible thing happens before learning from their mistakes. But this time, they learned from it. No one got hurt, thank God. So maybe moving forward, NASCAR can prevent a nasty wreck like this from happening again when it doesn't have to. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but you know what? I'm willing to wish. Also, The windshield wipers were atrocious at times. A lot of times, while it was pouring, they'd be stopped, they'd be stuttering, they'd only go halfway. That needs to change. NASCAR needs to have an effective way to keep these windshields clear so the drivers are able to see better, so they can react better, and so we don't have wrecks like we saw with Kevin Harvick, Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr., and Cole Custer. We need, as fans, to point out that this is something really big that NASCAR can fix. And if it's not NASCAR that can fix it, the teams definitely can fix it. And lastly, NASCAR just needs to prepare better. Like I said, it seemed like they were just flying from the seat of their pants. And while that can be fun, it also can be pointless. For instance, single file restarts. They said they did it for visibility, just like at Bristol. The difference is, at Bristol, everyone going over the same line packs in that dirt and makes less dust, hypothetically. Whereas here, the damn track is wet. So everybody following right behind one another is just going to make the visibility worse because more water will be kicked up into their windshields. So that, for instance, while it's cool to see single file restarts, is something that was a pointless change that shouldn't have been made, in my opinion. NASCAR, like I said, needs to prepare better, take everything into consideration, ask everyone for their consideration, and go from there. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this, because like I said, I had a lot of fun, and I really did like this race. I think it was an above average race. It just had some of those moments that were really, really crappy. But with that, I want to pass this one on to you. What did you think of NASCAR's first race at COTA? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video. Share this video. Subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content like this. And if you want, if you really, really like it, become a member on the channel. Your choice. And until next time, have a good one.